This is Cloud and Clear. It's our podcast interacting with customers and partners, Googlers, technicians, innovators, path breakers, trying to see how this cloud stuff works and what we can do next in it. I am super stoked, super stoked to have a new friend of mine from the Google team, Priyanka, on the call with me today. She is a visual thinker, which is like so rare in our technology world. I'm just really excited to have a chat with her. Priyanka, maybe you give a more detailed introduction for our audience.
Well, we won't have a drum roll. Thank you so much
Tuba
for
solos are
having
possible.
me. Thank you so much for having me here. I am a developer advocate on the Google Cloud team, and I really get to have a lot of fun with visuals and explaining our Google Cloud concepts with, or in general, sometimes just the cloud concepts with either visuals or videos or blogs and creative demos and those types of things. So I am very excited to be here.
That is rad. That is rad. Well, uh, I have spent a lot of time drawing pictures of clouds, right? Like really bad pictures. And so
You
when I
can't screw
saw
up making cloud. Like it's just, you can't do that.
it's right. It's like drawing a bad snowflake. There, no two are the same. Like, of course, it's going to be a good snowflake. So I think that us visual thinkers are sort of a rare breed in the technology space. What connect the dots from like how did you get into cloud doing this? Like,
Yeah.
seems like a long run.
Okay, so yeah, even though it's a long story, I'm gonna like
No,
summarize it. So
that's what it's for.
I have always had a knack for art and creativity in general. So since the very early age, I've been drawing and painting. So that's where the whole like visual thinking comes from. Like everything I think about when I'm doing a presentation or when I'm trying to even take notes of like digesting a concept, I would think about it in a visual term and then try to translate it into words. So that's how my thought process works. So given all of that, like I very early on with my studying started to combine art and creativity into technology to learn concepts and then eventually when I became a customer engineer and sales engineer at different companies, I was able to utilize some of those skills to present to customers, and really from there I started to see the value of visual representation of technology. So from there, turning into a DA was really a perfect amalgamation of those two skills and trying to do that visual, technical storytelling at the same time, and then adding video in as well. So all these elements really just bring out the things that I'm normally passionate about outside of work, which is art and like painting and sketching and those types of things, and just it's a combination. So now the work as a DA is really not just work anymore, right? Because it's like combination of thinking visually and drawing and noodling and those types of things. So I just perfectly like enjoy. I think I've found the role that I actually enjoy in technology. Just like sometimes you find people who are like, I don't know if I'm like doing. I think I want to cut that. Sorry.
I work all the time with folks um, that have incredible capabilities, right? Are gifted, hyper intelligent, super motivated, but there's a mismatch between either the structure of the task they've been asked to take on, or the ratio of sort of learning to doing, or how much is an external communication versus internal. Everybody is, we actually are humans and unique creatures, and so what I saw in the materials that you were producing and the face on the video was someone who really had found a super great match. So it's clear, it's great to hear from you that you're experiencing it the same way as it telegraphs across the screen to me. So it's
That is so good to hear. But yeah, I mean, there's no, like, I'm not forcing myself. I'm not trying to do a thing. It's happening because I'm just passionate about it. So I'm glad that it comes across that way on screen as well.
Yeah, oh, it completely does. It completely does. So, we spend a lot of cycles, um, because one of the ways we think about it is that it's pretty hard to adopt Google Cloud if you don't have some kind of transformation in mind, right? It is going to have a transformative effect, irrespective of which of the building blocks you select out of the giant matrix of hexagonal shapes. Um, you know, that change, right? The transformation that happens. How, what have you found easiest, best? What makes the biggest impact on the people that are trying to learn from your materials? Like, have you seen sort of parts of that work better than others?
Yeah, so I see a lot of students taking interest in the material to or and so I shouldn't just say students plus the 101 and 201, like who are trying to learn to get into cloud space. That type of technical practitioners take a lot of interest in the visual content, usually because it's easier for them to navigate and learn through it. But there's also I also see specific types of specific topics that get a lot more traction. And this is interesting because, for example, if you look at cloud migration, that gets a lot of attention because any content around that gets a lot of attention because you know everybody's got something somewhere in either on premise or somewhere, right? And they would like to take that and move to cloud. So I've seen in the past year that all the content that I've made around migration has gotten a lot of attention for that reason, because that's frankly the best way to one learn and also utilize and start in cloud, right? So from the topic perspective, that's what I get. From the learning perspective, there's a lot of messages I get that I passed a certification, reading through all your sketch notes,
Hmm.
for example, or I am preparing for a certification and these are super helpful, or I'm just trying to get into cloud. And along with the quick labs and the code labs, I also have access to this material, which helps me prepare to actually do those code labs, because some of the times you need like the actual background before you jump into doing a lab. So some of that those are the kinds of feedbacks that I have gotten, which encourages me to keep going with some of this content.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. What we hear from customers and partners all the time is that they love learning stuff, but they have to select the things to learn because there's kind of an unlimited amount of stuff to learn, based on their perception of the value of that knowledge, and that value is of course its own equation around how hard is it to learn versus how much extra do I get paid, or how much faster does my system go, or how much less does it go down as I know these pieces. And I think one of the spots we're visualizing and doing this kind of prep work, what that telegraphs to customers is we we know enough about this and have practiced enough that we can actually spend the time drawing it. And so, like, there are very few like ultra colorful beautiful drawings on the alpha products, right?
Yeah.
So it's this like little placeholder for like, I promise you can, it's safe to learn this one, let's go, right? Like, so that helping more with that, the value part of the education thing, I think is a spot where we're trying to spend more cycles too. What
Yeah.
if that's a spot we're poking at, where are you poking at next?
So I'm poking at a little bit into my this year's goal is to poke a little bit into machine learning and AI. So that's
Yeah.
kind of all the stuff. I just started 31 days of ML on social media, and then I am also working on a series that's going to launch sometime in Q2 for machine learning. So yeah, for this year, I'm focusing a little bit on machine learning and also like 101, 201 type content on machine learning, which really needs to be there.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah. No, there's a huge gap. I mean, we spend a lot of cycles. I like the Gartner hype cycle, right? Where it's like there's the peak of excitement and then the trough of disillusionment. And we're in this weird moment where it's like, are we in the trough of disillusionment around ML? Like, I mean, like, I guess there's less hype, but but every company that I talk to that's actually successfully using it is making a catastrophe of money or making customers happier or doing sort of marvelous things. So it's like it's a pretty shallow trough,
Yeah,
and if that's true, you know, I think one of the things that we spend a lot of cycles with is ML is the sort of icing on the cake or the cherry on the top of the cake, and how hard it is for most businesses to do the thing they actually wish they could do with ML, right? Like there's a bunch of things that we can make easy for them to do with ML, but that's not the thing they actually wish they could do with it. And I'm
yeah,
trying to help more of us, hone down to, what you really want to do is figure out which sales opportunities are good ones, or you want to figure out which
exactly.
business deals to not take, or like which market to enter into next. Those kinds of like really gnarly business choices are, one, they're hugely multivariate, and depend on a whole pile of data that maybe you're not so good at like processing it in the first place, and there's no auto ML model for it yet. Oh no. So how do you balance the like getting to a result quickly, or making the first step towards the right result? How's
Exactly. Like
that?
finding that perfect use case that actually makes sense for your company to start
Mhm.
with in machine learning is just so important, because there's and plus then the second piece of the puzzle, which is a really big one, like data. Where is your data, and in
Sure.
how many different places, and then how are you going to clean it up, and all of those things are just most of the time when we think about machine learning, it's most people just think about it in terms of, oh, I'm going to get a bunch of analysis and prediction, but they forget to think about like this whole aspect of data and cleaning up and all of that. So I think there's a lot of awareness that's happening now about around that. So yeah, I'm excited to explore a little bit of that, and get more feedback from the community and see what they want to hear from us as well, and that type of stuff. So,
What's Speaking of the community, like, I see you on Twitter. I end up seeing some of that stuff make it from there over into LinkedIn. Like, what's the best way for the community to interact with you, to put stuff on your radar?
yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter are pretty much both the best platforms for me. I am on both of them constantly.
You just made my CEO's heart aflutter, right? As probably like the deepest LinkedIn addict alive.
I
Yes, you can
know
include that
Tony
in the
is.
video.
I see a lot of stuff from
Oh
Tony
yeah.
on there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. He's super super prolific. So that'll be happy for him to hear. I think, um, for me, I've always felt like those two are such radically different audiences that I have to have like a very different voice, and different kind of material resonates or works well. I'm super inspired by the amount of engagement and interaction, and people are sort of really wrangling with the materials that you're putting together on the Twitter side. What um, when you're thinking through kind of building the next one, like, are you way over in software development town, like a formal burn down, and you run a Jira board and you've got to sort of straighten out the backlog to be able to figure out, or is it like way more abstract than that?
So I am, yeah, it's kind of like that. So I have a bunch of bugs that I would create, and then a bunch
Yeah,
of like demo assets that I would keep attaching to the bugs until like I feel like, okay, like this is looking decent enough that I can turn it into a lab, or I can turn it into a video. And yeah, that's my world. I just live and thrive on bugs and internal like calendar reminders for myself, like this is
sure.
so those are the two tools in between which I can get my work done.
Yeah, I'm terrible, right? Like, I can explain things fairly well, and so inevitably end up in like phone calls, and I'm trying to explain to other people like, hey, we should do a demo and should have this and this and the other thing, and I sort of rattle off the list, and they like smile and they're like, that sounds so good, I want to do that too, and then we're done with the half an hour, and they haven't written anything down, and I was like, you weren't writing things down? Like that was the kind of the whole point. Like, come on, we got to go do that stuff. So I'm glad to hear that you're writing things down. That's an important
Yeah,
part of the boogie.
yeah, it helps
What?
me also like figure out, like that's just like the way I plan things. It helps me figure out like what's coming if you ask me what's coming 3 months from now, I can actually put a finger on that. And that
Yeah,
only happens because I plan and write a lot about, and most of my planning actually happens with pen and paper, again in the drawing format, and then I turn it
sure.
into how it looks on either a sheet or in an email and stuff like that to just keep myself on track. But that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot where like life imitates art. Hopefully, apps imitate art. I drew some really weird pictures of cloud stuff, and there are now like a whole bunch of startups that document and visualize cloud infrastructures using the structural format that we laid out. Carlos Condi did incredible work on that stuff, and I there is a subset of technologists who go, that is irrelevant. I don't understand why you have a picture. Just show me the code base. This is so silly. And then there's this other subset that are like, oh, finally, I get it. Oh, thank you so much. Like that's so intensely helpful. Like if you're doing what I consider sort of superhero work in the visualization of this stuff and helping people understand it that way, like how do you think of the map of different ways that people learn, and who are heroes of yours around helping people learn in those other ways?
Yeah. So one of my thought process around this whole visual content is, if I can explain it in pictures, I think that it. Okay, I'm going to rephrase that a little bit.
Sure.
If I can explain it by drawing pictures, the flowcharts, and where things flow from one to another, I have a better understanding of it versus if
Sure.
because I can jumble the words and still get it across. But most people, even though they don't think they are visual learners, they are.
Sure.
That's what my analysis so far has been. So and for me personally, I feel like when I'm studying, when I'm focusing on how I want to portray a concept to an audience, I my thought process there is, how can I reduce their time of reading 5 articles and concisely do this in one picture, right? If they were to only look at this, because all of our attention spans is really, really low at this point, right?
Sure.
Because of the
Sure.
internet. So I personally can't focus on anything more than 2 minutes or so. So
Hold on, I gotta go.
you've got me hooked here, so that's good.
I appreciate that you're thinking about the visual side, and I agree with you. Like one of my professors, David Douglas, who is a genius, said expression is the final stage of thought. And if you're not writing it down or converting it to some sort of static thing, you can't. It's expensive to hold these things in mind and then turn them around and look at them and make sense of them, and then try to explain this thing you have in mind to somebody else. If you take it out of your melon and cram it on the page, all of a sudden we can all think about it, and I can think about something else and come back to thinking about this thing. Like, it's beautiful, very
Yeah.
beautiful scene.
And also, I feel
That
like there's one more aspect to it, which is, how can we add fun to it, fun to learning?
Yeah.
Because like I have some characters in my sketch notes who just like throw their arms up in the air or like do things that just make you want to read more. And
That's right.
that's important, because not a lot of our technical stuff is inherently engaging or fun. So how do we make it that? So that's that one additional piece that I feel like is important. And I know
Yeah.
some people may or may not agree with that, right? But that aspect of it is just so important to make it continue to spend more time. Again, it goes back to that attention span. Your attention,
Yep.
we are hooked in a comics. There's a reason why, right? That's kind of the thought process around this type of content.
Yeah. I mean, we took a chunk of time and hired some video game developers to help us build Cloud Hero, the training environment.
Yeah.
And the first version of that, it was pretty funny and kind of fun, right? Like, and I think it's gotten better now. It's like it's a more more useful training system. I have evil plots to make it funnier again, but I keep hearing the TV ads, right? Like, language learning is hard, so we make it fun, right? I'm like, yeah, see, that is exactly how it works. And we spend a lot of cycles, trying to help, customers convert this stuff to a game and see how silly it is when it breaks in the ways that it's not supposed to, and just, life's too short, right? You gotta have a decent time with this stuff, or it's insane, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
for you, what's been the most fun thing? 2020 is like the least fun year for anybody, right? Like everybody's list is like, oh, let's sort of like leave that one aside. But like, what was the most fun for you in that period of time?
Yeah, I actually thought that 2020, even though it brought a lot of like negative things, it all my just because of all the travels getting canceled, I was heads down able to focus on some of the newer projects that I had in mind. I came up with the whiteboard videos, and then I came up with this sketchnote stuff in that period. So I feel like for me, 2020 was really productive in that sense because I was in my element of like making some art. The first sketch note I would say took me like 3 days to actually draw.
Mm-hmm.
3 days,
Sure,
like entire
sure.
days. But I improvised on that process, and now it's much faster. But that's kind of, I would say, like the biggest accomplishment and fun aspect of 2020.
Oh, that's rad. Yeah, I mean, I saw it as a real highlight for us too, just to like, oh, they're doing it. Like, I think it's easy, outside of Google to look at Google as like one giant single entity, right? Like, and so when Priyanka starts drawing pictures, that means Google is now drawing pictures, right? Like you have, it's sort of an outsized impact as a result of the sort of,
Yeah.
aggregation of all that. Um, we we do a lot of thinking on our side about, again, about this kind of 101, 201, how to get people started, how to let them have kind of their first experiences be fun. And, back to this kind of video game concept, you know, I I wish that a bunch of people from Blizzard or a bunch of people from EA or a bunch of people from these game companies that Google has, I don't know, won a bunch of them as customers and been serving them well, and everybody seems to like be happy. Like, I just want to borrow some of the UI developers. Like, come here for a second. And like, I like the console a lot, but I don't like it that much, right? Like, I
Yeah.
like StarCraft way better. Like, let's figure out if we can close the gap. Like, what if that's one way, right? Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity to bring expertise across disciplines, right?
Yeah.
So, we have folks on our side that help all the time, that come from movie background, and so our movies are better, right? Like, you have an art background, and so the art of what you do is better. Like, what other ingredients should be brought to bear in cloud? What else could we add to make it even more fun?
I think there's the gaming aspect that we started exploring a little bit, but there's definitely more opportunity there where it's like, like you're trying to solve this maze or this puzzle, right? Something around like Cloud Heroes, but a little bit more targeted. And like, I'm trying to learn BigQuery, for example, right? And taking like running queries and accomplishing steps and then getting stars for that and then moving forward and crossing a level. Like, I feel like that could be, that's something from the fun and like marrying the fun and the learning together could be definitely worth exploring. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one I can think of.
Yeah, yeah. There's I had worked, this is a while ago now, and my I was at my startup, and our data infrastructure was terrible, and I was in charge of it, so I can say that. So, and it was immensely slow for doing some of the critical parts of the workflow. We were trying to understand everything that was happening in social media before they called it social media, so it was a little weird, and we had these really gnarly loading windows. Like, it would just sit there and load on. Oh, just give me. I got to process. Just give me a second, right? And we're on our side. We're like, poring over the thought of like, how do we get load times in half or load times in a quarter, and like it's this like very stressful deal. And one of our sharp engineers cut up the user manual into little slices and flipped through as cards components from the manual and then put little characters in the corners with the cards. And we made the thing faster, and we got service tickets telling us to keep the thing slower so the cards would be up more often, right?
Yeah.
So it is a spot where, the investment in helping users and being focused around how users work. That's one of the places where, like from a feature standpoint, the stuff that I'm super interested in is, where the platform is going around helping users, reducing work on their part, taking over parts that are complicated, getting down to just letting them express out of the rest of the product that's there. I mean, you were touching so many of the different pieces. Like, what have you seen that's been most helpful coming out of Google Cloud lately?
Yeah, I feel like all the serverless stuff is super helpful,
Mm-hmm.
and I would explicitly want to shine a little bit of light on Cloud Run.
Well, Ron.
It's just so amazing. Like I was last week playing around with a sound classifier model on teachable machines, and I was like, how where do I put it? Where do I host it so people can see it? And because it was running locally, and I was like, I just quickly want to turn it around and just give it to people to play with. And I just thought of Cloud Run, and within like 10 minutes, literally 10 minutes, I had the service up and running, and I sent the link to a few people who wanted to try it out. And I was like, this is like, I shouldn't have to deal with the back end
Right.
infrastructure like whatsoever. My problem is literally super small. I have this thing that I want to host and give people a link. And from deciding to do that and actually making it happen, it taking literally 10 minutes is actually a big deal. I think it's like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, we've all learned how to like spin up VMs and then how to how to install a software on it and then being able to run whatever we want to run. So I mean, there's value in that as well, but I feel like this whole shift from virtualization to serverless is just so powerful because you can actually just focus on solving the problem you're trying to solve. And I give that example because I was just like, I was working on this, so passionate about trying to get the sound classifier working. And it's like, it took me a few hours to get that to work, but then I had no energy left to
Sure.
to get it to host and stuff like that. But I was like, oh, let me just explore Cloud Run. I'm just gonna try and see if this works in like 10 minutes. If it doesn't, then I'm done. I'm not doing it. And it
Yep.
did. I really think that it's very powerful for developers. You don't need to know how the heart of it and those layers are working together. All you just need to know is here's my code, host it.
Yeah, there's always been this tension, right? Like I sat with Eric Schmidt. He yelled at us for not running the Obama campaign in 2012 on App Engine, and I said, App Engine is a toy you can't run real software on. And he was like, you're a problem. Let's talk about this for a second. And and then I started working at Google. And uh, so you can go, like, I love where serverless is at in that it has opened this broader aperture that says, okay, if it's in a container, you get magic, right? Because
Yeah.
everybody equates, like, any sufficiently advanced technology as an indistinguishable from magic. Well, cloud is pretty damn advanced, so guess what? It's magic. But the part that I want is the magic part, not the dealing with crap, right? I want the over here where it just sort of works. And I think all of the value creation is in expanding the aperture. So I'm submitting my feature request now for Cloud Run for AS400
Yeah.
and Cloud Run for Z Systems and Cloud Run for COBOL. Oh, Cloud Run for COBOL actually works. We made it go.
Oh, good. Okay, I did not try
Can be
that.
can be done. It's turtled all the way down, but it can be done. And those are the spots where when we had Eric come to the first next, what he said was, we got to meet customers where they are and take them to what's next. And I was like, I'm so glad the boss said it right. And I think that there's a lot about the way that you're helping visualize that's helping customers go to what's next. And I think inspiring this new class of customers to come in who won't be patient for the crap, right? Like, Priyanka said Cloud Run's awesome, and I want all my stuff in it. So make it happen, PMs. Let's go. And that's a spot where I think the more Google can be leaned into, catching the real customer workload and bringing the Google magic to it. That's a recipe for success.
Yeah, yeah, and it all boils down to our decreasing patience across every one of us, right?
Yeah.
We have no patience for stuff that we don't want to deal with. So
I saw the meme template that's that ain't nobody got time for that, and underneath it just says everything, right? Like I don't have time for anything, right?
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking a block of time and kind of walking through this stuff with us. We have an audience that I think is very, very impressed by all the hard work that you do. So all I can do is encourage you to keep it up. And if there's anything we can ever do to help, or back your play up, or make noise about the good stuff you're doing, I'm happy to do it. Any last bits you want to yell at our folks about? We got a bunch of people watching and eager to take them down the right path.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely honored to be a part of this, because I remember my interaction with you the first time, which was on the Cloud Hero event, right? Like we were trying to shoot something for Cloud Hero, and that first interaction was like, I am so impressed. I want to work with Miles, and then you were gone.
The cape was correct, right? I had to fly, right?
Right. I still have the cape picture, by the way, in my internal as my internal picture within Google. So like I will never forget that. But yeah, I mean, I still do enjoy these interactions with you and the team. I've worked with Kyle before. I sometimes see Tony around on LinkedIn, and he comments and likes things and stuff. So I just love these interactions. And then sometimes I do get feedback from the team at SADA. So it's always good to collaborate in these ways, because 2020, what it has taught us obviously is to be able to collaborate no matter what, right? And that's so right. I do really appreciate all the collaboration that we do, whether it's in the form of feedbacks or videos and stuff. I would love to do some content with you as well at some point. So let's do that.
Man, I'm happy to be a terrible drawer, and you could be the good one. It'll be outstanding.
No, but it seems like you're into music, so I would love to do something around that. So, and I can't sing or play anything, so
everybody can play the drums. Come on, like the drummers everywhere.
So maybe we can go crazy one day and just do something around that, because I really want to. I have some thoughts, but
You say what you want. I will play farty sounding bass noises anytime you like. I'm on board.
Let's do it.
All right, Priyanka, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Cheers. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud and Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.